Good day, I'm Mike James, and this is Parkitect. How's everyone doing today? So glad you could join me. Had a lot of requests for this one. Today we're going to talk about how to build a roller coaster. And I can't teach you exactly how to build a roller coaster. It's kind of like saying, let me teach you how to build a car or how to build a house. I can show you the techniques. I can give you some ideas, some do's and some don'ts. But if I tell you exactly what to do, then I'm just teaching you how to build my roller coaster, not yours. So we're going to go over some of the basic do's and don'ts to basic roller coaster design. And we're going to do it using the wooden coaster. I have one here I threw together. It took me about, 20, 30 minutes to throw it together, another 15, 20 minutes to do the scenery and things. And it's a pretty good coaster. It's not a great coaster, but it incorporates a lot of the design philosophies I have. And the reason I'm starting with the wooden roller coasters is they are the easiest to visualize as far as you seeing it on the screen and understanding where the curves are and what's going on. A lot of the steel coasters, it looks like, metal tube spaghetti. I've said that before. When you look at it, you have to kind of scroll around and kind of get an idea for it. These are very easy to see where everything is, what's going on. They're also a little simpler to build. And I say simpler, there's less complications as far as the pieces, but that makes them a little more challenging in some cases. Now, this roller coaster here, it's called the Splinter. And I very often, right there in the middle, where that big first, or the hill going up before the first drop, in that big area with all that scaffolding, I usually put a sign there with the name of the coaster. But I took that off so you get a little bit better look. But let's talk about basic roller coaster design. So let's go over here, and I've set up a couple things so that we can talk about some of the do's and the don'ts. And keep in mind, as with everything, all rules are made to be broken, but you have to understand the rule before you can learn to break it. Now, one of the things here you'll see, these are 3 hills. They could be hills for your initial climb for the coaster, but more importantly, let's say they're just hills in the middle of your coaster, upslopes. And you'll notice they have the same angles up here, but you see this difference here? This is how gently the slope changes, and this is what I wanted to highlight here. And when you're building a coaster in Parkitect, you will notice that, well, first you have to place this piece here just to get it started, but you will notice these are your tools, and when you're building a slope, you can build it gently, average, or steep. And when you use this button here, it affects how many track pieces are being laid down at a time, and that affects everything in your coaster design because it takes the number of units or spaces, the number of pieces you're using in that particular plop down, I don't know what to call it, and it evens out the change in curve. Now see, this is fairly abrupt. This is a little more gentle. This is even a little more gentle. And this is even a lot more gentle. Now I can't build there because I'm going outside the park, but you see how gentle that curve is. Now, because you are going farther, it actually ends up, the height ends up a little different depending on how long you make this. But the big thing you want to concentrate on is how abrupt that curve is. If you look at it here, this change, let me get out of there. This change is just 1 unit. I went straight from flat to the maximum lift height. It's actually not the lift height, the maximum riser, the maximum up angle. This has 2, this has 3. Now you can go farther than 3 and it'll get more and more gentle. The idea behind basic roller coaster design is you want your roller coaster to flow like water. You want it to appear like it's flowing. You don't want it to be an abrupt change. Anytime your roller coaster is doing something, it needs to flow smoothly from one part of the track to the next. Now, this is a good example of why I like to do a little bit more gentle curve, because you look at that, imagine you're going along and just all of a sudden, zoop, you're going up. And we'll show you that in the coaster in just a moment. Next up, let's talk about the same thing, only with drops. Now, here with the drops, you can see I've got the most abrupt drop, a 2-length drop, and a 3-length drop. And as with before, you could go 4, 5, 6, however you want. But let's take a look at this. It drops abruptly, and then it goes back up abruptly. This is all one track piece at a time for the changes, and that is a pretty abrupt change. That's not flowing like water. Now the next one, if you look at this next one here, you can see it is a lot more gentle. And this is what I personally consider acceptable, is this second one. This is what I find the most harsh change. And this is a 3-unit change. And that you can see is very sweeping. That works great on bigger coasters. When you get into smaller coasters, if you're trying to build a roller coaster that doesn't span, a third of your park, a lot of times you have to make some concessions. And one of those concessions might be you can't have this huge sweeping curve, because you won't have enough room to make your ride. It'll just be too spread out. But you can see when you look at when you originally look at this, you might not have noticed, but when you look at these, you could see how much smoother, how much nicer those are. Same thing goes for banking. Now, banking is something a lot of people forget about, but when you're going into a hard turn, you want to make sure that you have some banking so that people aren't getting slammed against the side of the roller coaster and they're feeling more of that pleasant G-force down. You can see here that right here, this is going from 0 to, and I went pretty aggressive. This is a 60-degree bank. I almost never use a 60-degree bank in my roller coasters, at least not my wooden ones. Some of the steel ones, yeah, absolutely. But on a wooden roller coaster, generally 45, 50 is about the most you're ever going to go. But you can see with just one tile, one track length for the transition, it's very abrupt. You're going to just throw people right out of your coaster. It's like hitting a rock while I always have trouble with this, whitewater rafting. You just all of a sudden tip sideways. And believe me, that isn't good. I've had that experience. They call it whitewater swimming. Not as much fun as you might imagine. Here is a 2-unit transition, much better. And because these are such such large transitions from 0 to 60, I went out to 3 and then again out to 4. Now, look at the 4. It's still, when you get here, it's an optical thing. It looks really strange because the track is really banked. But if you look, you can see it's a fairly gentle transition. Here, a little more rough. Here, it's still really rough. And here, it's just throwing you right out of the coaster. So don't forget to bank. And this same idea carries through all of your coaster building, all the coaster types. And when you're looking at these and you're building these coasters, you have to make sure that you're extending out your track length, not just to make it quicker so you could throw down 5 units of track at a time, boom, 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 but so that your transitions can be smooth. Let's take a look at some coasters. Back here, I have 2 coasters. I have one that we've made using basically no transitions at all. Everything is just one piece, one unit to make transitions from going up to going down. And, oh, the coaster's broken. It's been out here for a while. Don't have a repairman. Let's go ahead and just get a repairman to fix these. Put this guy here. Fix it. And what I want you to notice is when you look at this, especially from far away, you notice something doesn't quite look right. It doesn't look like a roller coaster. It looks like something is wrong with it. There is a bug in this version. We are in pre-alpha 8. There is a bug where sometimes these people are not fixing the rides correctly. They're getting stuck. So it's really, you could tell, it is just not quite right. And let me assure you, that's a problem. When your people ride this ride, they're not going to have as much fun. And you really want to go ahead and make sure that your roller coaster is fun for everyone. I don't think they're going to fix it. It's okay. We can just run it like this. Are they fixing it? No, they're not fixing. Oh yeah, there it's fixed. Okay, perfect. So you'll notice that when we go back to this next one, you're going to notice that this roller coaster looks a lot better. Let me go ahead. I'm sorry about this. I just got to get this guy. We got to get this guy to fix the roller coaster. It's such an annoyance sometimes, I'll tell you. I think there's a cheat where I can make it so the roller coasters don't break, but I don't recall. So there we go. Now, look at this one. Same basic layout. But we take a look at it. That looks more like a regular roller coaster, doesn't it? You see the smooth transitions? The banked curve here, because you're going to be going pretty quick. Smooth camel humps. None of this, looking like the letter M off of Sesame Street. It looks a lot better. Another thing you'll notice I did on this coaster, and you have to forgive these missing pieces of support I made this coaster on a blank map and then just imported it in. And when you import rides, sometimes some of the wooden structures aren't there. If I delete the track and put them back in, it puts them back in. It's just a bug. But let's take a look and watch this roller coaster versus this roller coaster in the background. And you'll notice the difference immediately. I make this flat here because that's more like what real roller coasters do. And you don't want it trying to go down the hill but having to pull cars up off the uphill. And you see how smooth that is? Smooth, like water. I feel like I'm teaching, karate or something. See how smooth those are? Now let's watch this one over here. It's going to go down and just, whoop, it's not smooth. It just doesn't look right. I mean, there's no other way to put it. And it also is going to impact the way that people like your rides. So if you do one thing when you're building these coasters, remember to use your transitions properly. 2 or 3 lengths of track anytime you're going from a steep angle to a flat angle or from a flat angle to a steep up angle. It just makes everything look so much better. I mean, you look at this, there's no comparison. Now, when it comes to actually making, whoa, didn't mean to go quite that far. When it comes to making a roller coaster itself, we'll do this, how to build an entrance at another date. But one of the things I like to do, and maybe you'll like it in your roller coasters as well, first of all, I try not to let my cars get very slow. You don't want, once you start going, you don't want places where you're just creeping along. So keep the momentum up. Having enough speed to just get over the hill isn't enough. Let's watch this car as it goes down. It goes down very quickly, comes back up, but still has quite a bit of speed as it goes around that bank curve. We go up a little and then drop right back down, and watch this. It's going to curve around to the right and up. Then it comes around here and then right back down. We have another curve here. Up, a little bit down and into a downward corkscrew. And then that's where it goes into the entrance again. It's a fairly short roller coaster. As I said, didn't take too long putting it together. But you notice it weaves in and out of itself. It doesn't do the same thing over and over and over. It's always got something new and exciting. People aren't going to know what to expect. That's one of the things, like doing this curve here and then immediately going uphill and slows down and then you're zip right back down. I think that really makes the roller coaster work. Experiment with your own roller coasters. Figure out what makes them work for you. Don't be afraid. The most important thing is to just start building and see what you come up with. You'll learn what works and what doesn't. And there's a couple other quick tricks and tips I want to leave you with. One is don't do what I did here on these sample roller coasters. Don't start your roller coaster on the ground. Real roller coasters don't do this. I mean, some do, but most don't. And there's two reasons that it's great not to do this. One of the reasons it's a good idea not to do this is because when your roller coaster starts on the ground, anytime you reach that bottom section, oh, I've already got them selected. I'm sitting here going nuts trying to figure out why I can't grab them. When you start your roller coaster on the ground, you can't go any lower without going into a tunnel, but more importantly, you can't actually curve or bank your track when you're at the lowest level. So when you get down here, if I wanted a banked track, I can't have one because well, I can, but it'll go under, it'll do that little tunnel thing and it just doesn't look good. Always start your roller coaster up 1, maybe 2 spots. The other reason you want to do that is because it allows you to have a steeper drop but not an extendedly long coaster. If you make your coaster too tall, then you've got to burn off a lot of energy and you either have to use brakes, which I really don't like, or you have to just make a really long coaster. By starting it off the ground 1 or 2 levels, you can have a really big drop, but then it's going to have to come up when you get to the end. You're 2 units up, so it's going to slow the coaster down naturally as if the drop were 2 units less than it really is. Of course, the other reason is you can build better entrance buildings around it. It just gives you a lot more options. So start by building, when you start your coaster, click here, start your coaster. When you have it here, just hold down the shift key, start it up 1 or 2, and build from there. That's what I did here on the Splinter, and it works out a lot better. The other thing you want to make sure of is leave yourself enough room, and you'll get a feel for it as you're building your coaster, how much each coaster burns off energy and what parts of the coaster burn off the most energy. I'll tell you right now, these corkscrews burn off a lot of energy. They really will slow your car down. And even if you're going downhill like this, they go downhill, but they don't gain any speed when they're going down these in general. So you'll get an idea of how to build it so that you can kind of plan on where your coaster is going to end. You don't want to run out of energy and be way far away from the end, because then how are you going to get it there? But you also don't want to be coming into the exit at 40 miles an hour. So just plan it out accordingly. Use these tips. Let me know what you think. Send me links to your coaster files. You can post them on the Parkitect Nexus, or tell me how you feel about it. Don't forget, if you like the videos and tutorials, please subscribe. I really appreciate that. Leave your feedback down below, or you can send me an email, mikethanks@gmail.com. Really glad you joined me today. And until next time, I hope everyone has a good one.